This is just the sort of pile of blackguard like Blackadder would grab for himself. Over 4 series and nearly 500 years, Blackadder tells the marvellously improbable story of the Blackadder family. They're all called Edmund, and they're all played by Rowan Atkinson. There's Prince Edmund, Lord Blackadder, the rather dandy Edmund Blackadder, and Captain Blackadder. They're all twisted schemers, which means they fit quite naturally into some of the key roles in British history, and, oh yeah, they have a totally useless sidekick called Baldrick.
I want to be remembered when I'm dead. I want books written about me. I want songs sung about me. And then hundreds of years from now, I want episodes from my life to be played out weekly at 9:30 by some great heroic actor of the age.
Yeah, and I could be played by some tiny tit in a beard.
I've got 20 reasons why Blackadder is best. For a start, it's not really a sitcom. It's more of an anti-sitcom. While some comedy programmes don't get much further than a sitting room, Blackadder spews itself across the whole glorious canvas of British history. It's free to go wherever it jolly well likes.
And now we come to the award for the most original comedy performance during the past year.
And the nominees are The Sofa in To the Manor Born.
There was a tradition of sitcoms where very little happened. The neighbour came in a slightly small pair of boots. So we didn't want that. We wanted people to be killed.
Nobody was allowed to say, what's the time? Oh, I've forgotten they haven't invented watches yet.
Look, if I'd wanted to lecture on the rights of man, I'd have gone to bed with Martin Luther.
It's not entirely new. I remember as a boy an extraordinary series called The Valiant Varneys, which was a historical sitcom. But Blackadder used history more smartly, like a bright schoolboy.
There's a book that I had when I was 9 or 10 called Looking at History by R.J. Unstead. It's got, in the Middle Ages, women wore wimples, and in the 17th century, gentlemen wore wigs. So pretty childish, but about what anyone except a professional historian can ever remember.
Fantastic plots and epic scale, and monstrous jokes about the events that have shaped our history gives this sitcom the biggest situation in television comedy. No suburbia, no visits from the vicar, and no jokes about minicabs. Blackadder is history made timeless, and the gag's on us. Sometimes, can this be mere chance? It's even true.
It's got such a huge scope. I mean, it's our island story, you know. It covers everything. It's what makes us British.
History! Here I come!
To say that Blackadder has a good script is to state the bleeding obvious. It's more than good. It's often sublime. It's sit-lit. Blackadder has the best use of language in any British sitcom.
This book, sir, contains every word in our beloved language.
Ooh. Every single one, sir?
Every single word, sir.
Oh, well, in that case, sir, I hope you will not object if I also offer the Doctor my most enthusiastic contrafibularities. Contrafibularities, sir? It is a common word down our way.
It's the fanciest thing I've ever written, and that came about partly because Ben was hugely interested in language, partly because we were allowed to be fancy because it was old.
Really worked out your banter, haven't you? No, not really. This is a different thing. It's spontaneous, and it's called wit.
It was just when computers had come in, and we used to swap discs. So he would write one episode and pass it on to me, and I would write an episode and pass it back to him.
Nowadays, with email, etc., I guess we probably would have never have met. In those days, I used to glue bits on and lift tab here, C, B, attached, etc., as did he.
The big rule was you were never allowed to put back in anything the other person had cut. Because Ben and I agreed that if you tell a joke at dinner and nobody laughs, you don't say, no, wait, really, seriously, this was funny. And say it again, because it's just going to get worse.
Would you mind if I change just one tiny aspect of it?
Which one?
The words?
The script was just the beginning of the Blackadder process. For the cast and the producer, changes were not only allowed, they were demanded.
It's a good joke. It's
Oh,
just
it's
that
all
the
right, it's
lead-in
good.
wasn't
It's good.
working.
All it was the peniscence wasn't quite good. Be a read-through of the next script, what Americans call a table read. John Lloyd would then bury his head in his hands and start sobbing and saying it was dreadful. Richard, who finds it very hard to be anything other than extraordinarily nice, would look slightly miffed, which for him is like a real temper tantrum. And we would start again.
6 lengths of Hungarian crushed velvet.
We never used to do the proper kind of rehearsals that actors are supposed to do when you say, what's my motivation? All we did was sit around and talked about the text.
No, hang on, there's something wrong here. Because surely, if you're ordering a cab for a Mr. Redgrave...
You've got a situation in Blackadder with a lot of writers in the room. Very difficult to persuade people in that loose, shambolic rehearsal situation that they must do the lines that are written on the script.
I'm still labouring under the belief that no one ever ordered anything by the phone in 1970.
And that's what makes Blackadder strong, is the upwards of half a dozen minds on every single word.
Who wrote this drivel?
Richard was there all day, every day, writing, rewriting.
Is there a problem with the speech?
Taking it on the chin when everybody's saying, well, that's not very funny, though, is it? Oh, that's the writer.
Whoops.
All right, then I'll rewrite it. But you weren't allowed to rewrite it. Richard always rewrites.
I hate to raise this, having worked on it for 3 hours, but do you think it's a very good joke, this? Or...
It was a very tough process, but it never reached the point where one didn't know that it was making it better. That was what made it such a pain in the ass.
4 peel of rice and 1 chicken tikka masala, and a cab for a Mr. Redgrave picking up from 14 Arnott's Grove, ring top bell.
A description leading from one description to yet another. The extended simile. Now, we've all heard some pretty stupid things in our time. Things can get very, very stupid. But exactly how stupid is that?
A horrid suspicion that Baldrick's plan will be the stupidest thing we've heard. Since Lord Nelson's famous signal at the Battle of the Nile. England knows Lady Hamilton is a virgin. Poke my eye out and cut off my arm if I'm wrong.
You might have a line, in the last few years, the front has moved about as far as an ant carrying some heavy shopping. And, you know, people add to this thing, and then somebody said, what about...
We've been sitting here since Christmas 1914, during which millions of men have died, and we've advanced no further than an asthmatic ant with some heavy shopping.
I don't remember myself having that many extended similes. Cue example.
You look as happy as a man who thought a cat had done its business on his pie, but it turned out to be an extra big blackberry.
By taking just the idea of simile itself.
It's so dirty, it would be unacceptable to a dung beetle that had lost interest in its career and really let itself go.
And just going further with it than a human being could ever believably go.
He's mad. He's mad. He's madder than Mad Jack McMad, the winner of last year's Mr. Madman competition.
And also further with it than any professional writer really has any business doing.
I'm as poor as a church mouse that's just had an enormous tax bill on the very day his wife ran off with another mouse, taking all the cheese.
There'll become a point where the meter goes into the red and everyone starts laughing, you know.
A large crisis. In fact, if you've got a moment, it's a 12-story crisis with a magnificent entrance hall, carpeting throughout, 24-hour porterage, and an enormous sign on the roof saying, "This is a large crisis."
I can't think of anybody else who does that, really. And pointless, probably. But it amused us.